Hi, I'm Peter Matthews with Firehouse, and thank you for joining us on today's Firehouse Quick Chat. Today I'm with Nathan Hillinger from American Fire Equipment. Nathan can tell us about American Fire Equipment Company and how it was founded. Welcome, Nathan. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Peter. How are we doing?
Good, good. How about you?
Pretty well. So American Fire Equipment, we've been around for about a year and a half now. We got started originally doing emergency apparatus repair and like custom build jobs to more so local departments and their rigs and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, we're a small company, family owned in Northwest Iowa. So we're not a huge corporation or anything like that. So it's if you call us, you're probably either talking to me or my dad. So it's
That's great.
yeah. So if you deal with us, it's one of the two of us most of the time. So.
Well, that's wonderful. So when I called looking for you, there's a good chance I was actually talking to your father and not you. So
Yeah.
that's cool. That's very cool. Okay. Well, I appreciate you joining us, and today we're here to talk about your new tool. So, can you tell us about your new tool that American Fire Equipment Company has rolled out and how it was developed?
Yeah. So we actually came out with last year a new torpedo nozzle. So it's a new style of suppression nozzle that's meant to be able to allow a firefighter to be kept outside of a structure while entering this with multiple extensions reaching into the fire compartment and having a discharge point inside the fire compartment. So
Okay.
The original idea behind the tool was to keep our guys as safe as possible while on a fire ground, reducing the risk of unseen injuries, but also when you keep yourself outside a structure, obviously you're reducing your exposure to those toxic carcinogens and all those other aspects that can end up causing cancer over time. So it was originally designed to be a life safety tool.
Okay. So the development process, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like where you maybe first showed it off and how the firefighters took the concept.
So yeah, it was the end of 2017. I don't remember the exact day, but it was in late December. We had a call. I think it was close to 20 below zero. I mean, there was a lot of lines freezing. There was ice everywhere. I mean, it's not a good situation when you have those kinds of aspects to play with on a fire ground. But we had a structure call and we couldn't get to the hotspot areas. So with the temperature being what it was, we had it was basically like working around an ice skating rink, and we had to eventually start pulling the building apart where we had to wait for the equipment to show up and start pulling it apart. But on the way home, we started talking about wanting to be able to do that more efficiently and quickly. So we started playing around with different prototype ideas, and we ended up coming up with this product. I think we worked on the prototypes for about 6 months or so and had probably 3 or 4 different designs that we played with, but ended up getting what we wanted. So this is kind of the end result.
So it's safe to say that you're a firefighter and some of the folks at American Fire Equipment Company are also firefighters.
Yeah, we actually have a small volunteer mutual aid department within our company. We have a rig that sits out in our first garage bay. So
Okay.
with the smaller rural departments around here, I mean, and a lot of areas have issues with staffing, especially during the day when people are at work. So we like to be able to help out the community towns and departments and that kind of thing as much as we can.
So at that point, the call comes in, you're putting aside your work and jumping on the rig and heading out to fight fire?
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
That's very
We have our intercom system linked up to the county dispatch, so we can hear all the calls going on. So if we get paid, we're pretty much dropping everything and rolling out.
That's cool. That is really cool. That's something you don't hear much anymore. So that's really cool. So props to you guys for doing that.
I appreciate it.
So tell us about the best applications for the torpedo nozzle. Again, you said you were trying to hit some hot spots, but what are some of the best applications for the nozzle?
So with the pattern, there's 49 different holes. Each row around this tip is drilled at a different angle. So
Okay.
starting from the middle, it's a 90 degree, and then offset 15 degrees towards the front to 0, and then offset 15 degrees towards the back, and we stopped at 45 because we don't need to soak ourselves, obviously. But so as you're entering into a fire compartment, you're going to essentially hit every single angle in that space. So it's a really versatile tool. And then with the extensions, you can vary how far you can reach in. If you need more extensions, you just simply disconnect the coupler. The couplers are pretty universal. They're just standard hose couplers.
Okay.
So anybody that's ever connected a hose coupler can disconnect or connect this tool with no problem. So,
Okay.
but yeah, room and contents fires, basement fires, attic fires, vehicle fires, and like I was talking about before, just hitting hot spots during mop up is a great asset for this tool.
So if you've encountered a collapsed structure, you can get underneath it without having to get firefighters up on an unstable, potentially, fire weakened roof in a structure or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, we're trying to keep our guys as out of harm's way as possible, and still be aggressive and effective with the suppression process.
Okay. So you mentioned some of the different types of fires. So how would you apply the torpedo nozzle at a basement fire then?
So obviously nobody likes basement fires. And the thing with this tool that's great, a lot of times with a basement fire with the standard procedures of, say, like a standard piercing nozzle or a cellar nozzle, a lot of times you're deploying that crew and that nozzle above the fire through that floor. With this nozzle here, you can run it through a basement window outside the house and cover a majority of the basement and not have that crew above that fire, where you don't really know the integrity of that floor until it's too late and it collapses on your guys. So again, this is a very safe and effective way to knock a fire out.
Okay. And then attic fires. I mean, that's another struggle, right? It's very firefighter intensive. You have to get a bunch of firefighters in and they start pulling ceilings and whatnot. So how can you use the torpedo nozzle on an attic fire, for instance?
It kind of depends on the height of the house and how many extensions a department would have. Okay. But if you can access that attic from the exterior and get an opening to push this nozzle through, you can knock most of the attic fire out without. You might have to go up on a ladder, but you're not gonna go into the structure nearly like you would with a standard hand line going into an attic fire.
Okay. How about room and contents fires? I mean, that seems to be the bread and butter for a lot of places. How can it be applied for a room and contents fire? I'm sorry.
So, and we have a lot of room and contents footage, like in our tutorial video that we have on YouTube. But with this pattern being in a circumference, you're able to walk up to, say you have a bedroom on fire inside of a house. You can walk up to the bedroom window on the outside, knock the window out, and run this all the way through the whole room. And with the pattern on this tool reaches, depending on the pressure you're running it at and the like wind and different aspects of that nature, but it reaches from a 15 to 20 foot radius, which is a 30 to 40 foot diameter. So you can knock a lot of a fire out in a room and contents fire pretty easily and pretty quickly.
So Nathan, you mentioned the vehicle fires earlier. What kind of scenario could you use the torpedo nozzle for a vehicle fire?
Yeah, so on a vehicle fire, I mean, especially with more modern vehicles, there's so many things that can explode in the face of a firefighter when that vehicle's burning. You're able to deploy this nozzle with the extensions that, depending on if you have 2 8-foot extensions, 2 10-foot extensions, whatever combination thereof, you're able to knock this nozzle tip through the window of the cab of the car or truck or whatever the vehicle may be, and hit every angle inside that cab from one position instead of having to walk up to it and put yourself in that hot zone where you're in more harm's way. So you can stand back and never get really within 20 feet of that vehicle.
Okay. All right. Great. That's great. And especially, with the fuel tanks, I mean, they seem to be failing more and more often now. So you're literally walking into a pool of fuel that could ignite.
Right. Yeah. And I actually got a call the other day from a department that used it on a vehicle fire. It was a pickup truck that had a diesel tank in the back, and the diesel tank in the back had been compromised, so it was leaking diesel fuel. And while they were assembling this on the back of the truck, they had a regular fog nozzle trying to knock the fire down as much as they could, but they said it kept flaring up and flashing over, and they got the tool underneath the truck actually instead of through the cab compartment. But they put it underneath the truck, and we're able to suffocate it with the amount of volume and the pattern shape that this tool puts out. They said they didn't even need to use foam.
Oh, that's great. Okay, that's different. You don't hear that too often. So okay. So we've talked about the applications. Now the training. This is a new concept for the fire service, right? And a lot of times with a new concept comes a lot of training. It's very burdensome on the firefighters. Training officers have to develop training programs. Firefighters need to go through hours of online training as well as in person or textbook training. So what kind of training do you need to deploy the torpedo nozzle then?
And that's actually one of the great things about this tool. It's so simple. It attaches just like a hose would. So at the couplers, if you can attach, like I said, a hose on a regular hand line, you can attach this just as easily.
Okay.
But with not having to go inside that structure and be able to keep your distance and have that water heat shield in front of you, it's pretty simple. I mean, you could have somebody that just joined the department last week that has very limited training and knowledge be very effective and safe with this tool.
Okay. And so from there, I mean, what is the best or what's the primary setting for the torpedo nozzle? So you roll this out to the fire service. What departments are you trying to get this into the hands of right away?
And like I was saying earlier, we originally developed this tool to be a life safety tool, not only for the immediate on-scene injuries, but also to limit the exposure of carcinogens over time. So in that respect, it's for every department, in my opinion. Okay. It's a great tool. It's another tool in the toolbox. But for me personally, being from a rural Northwest Iowa area, a lot of the departments that I go out and talk to are really excited about it from a manpower standpoint. So I talk to a lot of departments across the entire Midwest that they'll say, sometimes we get a good turnout on calls, but there's been a lot of times where there's only two or three of us that show up in the first 30 minutes just because everybody's at work or they're out of town and they got to wait till mutual aid shows up from 15 miles away. So with this tool, they're able to deploy it, and with 2 people on the scene or 3 people on the scene, a pump operator and 2 guys on the line, they can knock a lot of fire out with limited manpower. So it's a really versatile tool in that way as well.
Okay, so that's good. So it's the first line, first water is still immediate, no matter the staff, and you can deploy it, like you said through a window, and get that initial knockdown and get ready for everybody else to come to the scene. So
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then we have a video, right? Can you tell us a little bit about this chief who's going to share some of his experiences with the torpedo nozzle?
Yeah, so I actually went up and interviewed Pat Cast. He's the chief up in Alcester, South Dakota. They purchased the tool last spring, shortly after one of our first shows, and they actually ended up having a call the day after we brought it that they used it on, and he gave me a call and was couldn't be happier with the way it turned out that day. But so I called him up when I first discussed doing this interview with you and asked him if he'd be cool with me coming up and getting a testimonial from him, and he was more than happy to do it. And so I got him and then another one of his crew members with a couple stories about how they use the tool and why they like it so much.
Okay, so let's roll that quick video here from the chief, and we'll be right back.
I love it as a chief because I can put a couple guys on the end of that thing. They can walk up behind a curtain of water, and I feel safer, and I don't have to worry about them as much, because we're knocking the fire down before we're even getting into the heat of it. It comes in real handy for, after the fires are burning and we're just trying to get the hot spots out. I don't even have to put people underneath a unstable roof or anything else, where I can shove that in or have the guys shove it in, and we can put out fires that way.
So our first experience with the torpedo nozzle was an automotive fire. We were called in for mutual aid, and en route we had just received the torpedo nozzle the day before. The guys came down and taught us about it, showed us about it. And as we pulled up the scene, other departments 3-4 inch and a halves, 40-50 feet away from the building itself, being so hot of a fire, we were able to put it together, and with turning it on, having that heat shield, we were able to get as close as we were and not go into the structure, but to be able to extinguish those flames, cut the heat down as fast as we were able to with that was a huge game changer for us. You know, not having to go into the building, not having to be 50 feet away, but to be actually be up close and personal with it itself, but to be able to get angles that you couldn't get as far as you were, you know, 40, 50 feet away with it itself.
There's a lot of instances we've used it, you know, in the short amount of time that we've had it, and it's come in handy. It's a great, valuable tool.
Okay, Nathan, so can you tell us what the torpedo nozzle was built with, please?
Yeah, it's all constructed with structural aluminum tubing, 1/8" wall. It's a 2" tube, hard-coat anodized. It's all meets NFPA specs. The coupler on the nozzle is custom for the tool. It's able to just be hand tightened and hand removed, so it's not necessary to over tighten it with a tool or anything like that. We're trying to make it as universal as possible. And like I was saying earlier, the extensions are constructed with just standard hose couplers welded onto the end of the tube. So it's, like I said, it's as universal as we could possibly make it. We don't want to make things difficult on a fire ground. If somebody wants to break the tool apart and add it or subtract an extension, we want it to be as simple and as common of a process as possible.
Okay. So to transition from there, what about GPM and the pressure? I mean, how does the pressure being used impact the water pattern going through the torpedo nozzle?
So this tool is rated to flow right around 200 gallons a minute, with 49 different 1/8" holes. I mean, we're moving a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
The PSI rating that we advise departments to run it at is anywhere from 150 PSI to 180. I personally like to run it at about 160. It's pretty impressive how between the 150 to 180 range, how much the pattern can be affected. Like I was saying earlier, you can have over a 30-foot diameter with this pattern. At 150 PSI, you're going to have that reach, and anywhere up from there, you're going to have more atomization in that mist pattern. So you're going to cover more surface area. But as you get closer to that 180 range, you'll have a lot more mist, and it's going to be really fine, but the pattern will tighten up just slightly. So you're going to lose a little bit of the reach there. So it really just depends on the situation and who's running it. If they want to have cover more surface area with that mist pattern, or if they're looking to just reach as much as possible in that fire compartment. So that's kind of where I tell people to run it is 160.
Okay. And again, you'll as a firefighter or the officer on the nozzle, you'll determine exactly where it needs to be based on the situation.
Yep, exactly. Okay. I mean, if it's the kind of thing where you're showing up to a car fire, that car might only need a 12-foot cavity inside that cab, so you're not going to need that 30-foot of reach. So you can crank that up to 180 psi and you let the mist do the work inside that cab. So
okay, great. All right, so Nathan, so the video, it looks good. You know, we want to get the torpedo nozzle, right? So what's the next steps? How do we get a hold of you, an American Fire Equipment Company, to learn more or to make the purchase?
So our website is afecompany.com. All of our contact information is there. They can call or email me directly or my dad, Craig. Okay. There's also a link to our YouTube page with our tutorial video there with the tool, and as well as our other services. The title for the tutorial video, if somebody just wanted to go look it up on YouTube, that is Torpedo Nozzle Tutorial. That should be the first thing that pops up if somebody were to look that up. So okay. That way they can get kind of a breakdown of the tool a little more than we spoke with here today. So, okay.
And the big question, the cost of the torpedo nozzle. Can you tell us what that is with the extensions, and what firefighters can look at for a potential price to get this in their rig?
Yeah, so obviously, depending on the combination of extensions and that kind of thing, it's going to vary in price. The most common set that I sell is a nozzle tip with the valve and 2 8-foot extensions. The 8-foot extensions seem to be the most popular just because they are the easiest to store on most trucks. A department that has a larger compartment space can get the 10 or 12 footers, and that gives you extra reach on the fire ground. But like I said, it just kind of depends on the compartment storage on the truck. But the standard set that I sell with the 2 8-foot extensions, that lists at $2,840. And actually, during the month of June here, with the Firehouse promotion in 2020, we're actually going to be offering a 15% off of our inventory. So if somebody's looking to get that, I think it ends up being like $2,400, a little over $2,400 for that 2 8-foot extension set.
Well, thank you for offering that. So they can just contact you right now. It's 15% off. Just tell them that you saw the video on Firehouse. Is that what you're looking?
Yep. All you got to do is get a hold of me, email me, let me know. If you want to call me with questions, I can answer questions. I know a lot of people haven't heard of this tool before, so if there's anything they'd like to clarify or anything like that, if they have more questions to break down, I'd be more than happy to answer those too. So.
Okay, great. Well, Nathan, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Again, this is Nathan Hillinger. He's from American Fire Equipment Company. We've been talking about the torpedo nozzle, and it sounds like we need to act in the next couple of weeks here to get 15% off. The torpedo nozzle is not only for rural departments, it's for departments across the country. Sounds like a great tool to put on your rig to really focus on firefighter safety while you're still focusing on fire attack. So, Nathan, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Peter.